Okay.
A very warm welcome to everyone joining. I am very excited to have today's talk show on wastewater management in Jordan. My name is Mintje Burma. I'm working for GIZ Jordan, and I am very excited to introduce to you our three speakers of today. With me, there is Udo Kachel. Udo has more than 25 years of experience linked closely to the Jordanian wastewater and water sector. He was providing consultancy services and operations management support in different functions and positions to the Water Authority of Jordan and the associated public water companies. Presently, he is working as advisor to the Minister of Water and Irrigation in Jordan, and he supports the multi-donor initiatives for implementation of the national non-revenue water strategy in Jordan. Welcome. Then with us is also engineer Hind Al-Steifat. She is an integrated water resources management expert with 18 years of experience in water and wastewater management, climate change, and human resource development in the water sector. Currently, she's working as a component manager in the GIZ project Wastewater Treatment, Reuse and Water Supply in Jordan. Welcome. And last but not least, we have Rüdiger Heidebrecht, who worked the last 30 years in DWA, German Association for Water, Wastewater and Waste, as head of training and international cooperation. DWA is a standard organization and the biggest training provider in the German water sector. And since 2004, Rüdiger has worked in different projects in Jordan, Palestine and Egypt. Welcome. So to start with, Hind, could you tell us a bit more about the context surrounding wastewater management in Jordan?
Thank you so much for the introduction. Jordan is one of the most water scarce country in the whole world, and we face a huge demand when it comes to a huge problem when it comes to demand and supply. So in Jordan, we are trying to use water in more efficient ways. So we are looking more into technologies, how to improve our water resources, how to even utilize the available water resources. This is why we are looking more into the wastewater treatment is a critical part on this cycle, and we are trying to use our wastewater, treated wastewater in a more efficient way. This brings us to the fact that around 66.8% of the Jordanian population, which is around 7 to 8 million out of 10 million that are served with sewer connections, and we are using the treated wastewater out of this treatment plant. So the current situation in Jordan is really critical. We are trying our best to improve our water resources. We are trying our best to find new technologies and new ways to use our treated wastewater.
Okay. So Udo, working with the ministry, could you tell us a bit more about Jordan's main achievements when it comes to wastewater management?
Yeah, well, I had the privilege to accompany the sector somehow over the last 25 years, and quite typical for wastewater systems and development is that it takes time. Implementation cycles, planning, design, implementation, construction takes some time. The ministry started quite early in the late 90s already, developing strategies, policy papers, not only for wastewater treatment, but as well for reuse. So because, as Hind explained, Jordan is a very water scarce country, and irrigation is still consuming about 60% of all freshwater sources. So we started this, and then over the time, the wastewater treatment infrastructure and collection systems were developed. It's a period of, I would say, 20 years. We are now, in a way, reaping the fruits of all this development. You have infrastructure not only for centralized systems, but again, the wastewater which is collected through cesspits, septic tanks, have to be somehow, the septic sludge has to be disposed of in a safe way. So lately, we started with the help of some donors, building up a septic sludge treatment facility, which is quite innovative because we are using the inherent energy in wastewater to produce methane, electricity through combined heat and power plants. And those systems enable us to run this facility energy neutral, which is quite considerable, and of course is reducing greenhouse emissions. Then we have another system, one of the huge plants in Jordan. It's treating about 360,000 cubic meters of wastewater each day. This plant is, by the way, operated by a private company on a BOT arrangement. And this is very interesting. It already at this stage is producing about 80% of its needed energy inside the plant through either digesters, anaerobic sludge treatment, and hydropower plants, because the topography in Jordan is quite interesting. It's, we're pumping water from minus 300 up to 1,000 meters above sea level. And that means, in a way, we have the opportunity to use hydropower. Water has to be pumped up, it has to go down again to the Jordan Valley for irrigation. And so far we have now the capability to not only generate electricity from the plant itself, but as well through hydropower. And of course we have at the end now solar. Solar energy, PV, is one of the future sources to make this huge treatment plant energy neutral. But as Jordan is, again, quite, how to say it, has settlement patterns which are a bit strange or decentralized, we can only we cannot treat everything in central plants. That means you have more than 33 wastewater treatment plants all over Jordan. And one of the new innovative approaches is we combine 3 or 4 of these plants. It's again coming under German financial assistance. The German Development Bank is spending hundreds of millions of euros to realize the system together with the French government and the US government. That means we are now combining, first of all, upgrading the plants to generate electricity through the CHPs, as I mentioned, plus hydropower. And this water goes back to the Jordan Valley for irrigation. And we are covering now this water, energy, food nexus. Because we are getting water up, we consume, let's say, food out of the Jordan Valley or whatever, and we take it back, give it back, and the energy, again, try to utilize it as much as possible. So with this, we are, I think, in a position now to even modify the other plants, which is one of the future challenges, of course. I think this is by and large the first part. And, climate change is a theme it concerns all of us. And in this way, we are combining not only the typical wastewater treatment, but we make it in a way sustainable, because we are using renewable energies as much as we can. And we are reducing greenhouse emissions, and possibly as well have some fresh water available, additional fresh water for water supply and substituted with treated wastewater. This is, in a way, a short way describing the situation as it is now. But of course, there's much more needed. And I think we'll talk about this later.
Yes, thank you. So as you mentioned, Jordan is one of the world leaders in really reusing treated wastewater. My question to you, Rüdiger. For the use of reclaimed water in Jordan, water users and the public, they need to have confidence in the quality of this water. So GIZ and DWA have been supporting the Water Authority and the ministry in Jordan in introducing the so-called technical sustainable management approach. Could you tell us a bit more about this approach and also about how it is being used in Jordan compared also to other countries from your experience?
Yes, TSM, Technical Sustainable Management, was introduced in 2017 to Jordan, and since then it's running. And I think last week one colleague was there to give some further training and inspection. The other thing, what is TSM? TSM comes from the German water authorities, and it's used in infrastructure. It's for electricity, it's for gas supply, it's for biogas plants, it's for water supply, wastewater plants, but it's also for rivers and reservoir management. So all this infrastructure and what we call critical infrastructure needs a safe running and sustainable running of that one. So TSM is a tool. It translated the requirements by law, by regulations, health and safety regulations, and by technical standards in a language that the operator, the management, will understand it and will follow that. So it's a tool to improve the management system. We started in 2009 to 2014 in Egypt, and we introduced TSM Egypt at that time with 20 plants, water supply plants and wastewater plants. We trained the inspectors. We did the first inspection. Last time I heard on the IFAD, the holding company said they have now 280 utilities certified since then. So it's really running very nicely in Egypt. And they also developed a TSM for desalination plants, which is new on the market in a way. But also TSM, they introduced in Egypt, they did a lot of skills competitions. They run 8 national skills competitions on health and safety measures with all the utilities in Egypt. And so you see also this is, TSM has also a lot to do with qualification, further qualification, motivation. And the winning team of Egypt, they came to the IFAD to compete with the German companies. So TSM has also a lot to do with training and motivation of the staff. In Jordan, TSM is mainly on 6 pillars. One is human resource management, the other occupational health and safety, that is very important. The other one is operation and maintenance, quality control, and energy. Udo talked about the energy subject. Energy efficiency is also one of the TSM concerns. So what you can see, TSM is a tool to improve the management and to support the management. Not to kick them out, but to improve them on the same level so that really it can develop the management of the utilities. And that builds the trust of the people. So we started in Germany, of course, about 15, 20 years ago. Then we came to Egypt. Now Jordan is doing it, implementing it. And now we also have a GIZ project in Peru. So my colleague is also active in Peru to introduce TSM to Peru now. So it's a tool for management improvement.
Okay. So Hind.
Yeah.
GIZ is working on really tailoring this approach to the needs of the Jordanian wastewater sector. So could you tell us a bit more about what has been done already in Jordan? And
Sure.
what is still there to do in the future on TSM in Jordan?
Sure. As Rüdiger said that in 2017 we started to look inside TSM from Germany and Egypt. And that came out for the assessment that we did for the wastewater treatment plant in Jordan. As Mr. Udo said that we had 33 treatment plants. And we looked into this treatment plant, what is the need, and we found out there is a huge need for a kind of certification program or a kind that could organize the treatment plant. We have different departments, different pillars inside the treatment plant, and we need to make sure that these are connected in a way and they are working together in a way. So we knew about TSM from DWA, and we also talked to our colleagues, GIZ Egypt, in this regard, and we looked into the Egyptian experience. But TSM is not, it does not fit each country as the way it is. So we had to look into this. There's a catalog, there's a guidelines, different documentation for TSM, and we looked into the Jordanian regulations, laws, bylaws, standards, what has to be present in the wastewater treatment plant. And we came up, after 1.5 years, we came up with the TSM Jordan, and we ran the first inspection in 2019. We inspected 9 different treatment plants, and it was the first trial for TSM Jordan. After that, we looked again into our documentation. We learned from our first experience. So we had the first run, and now we have to modify. Where we did right, where we have to modify our documentation. And what kind of regulation standard maybe we might forget in the first inspection, or we have to modify, or we have to adapt. So we looked again in 2020, beginning of 2022, into this documentation. And this was a joint effort between GIZ, Water Authority of Jordan, water utility, the 3 water utilities, Yarmouk Water Company, Aqaba Water Company, and Miyahun Water Company. And out of these 3 utilities, also beside WAJ, we have inspectors who did the inspection. So we came out with the new version of TSM Jordan, and last week we had the second inspection for also a different treatment plant in Jordan. After having the TSM, and as GIZ always looking for to sustainability and how to the ownership of these kind of tools inside the wastewater sector, we agreed with Water Authority of Jordan that we should have what we call the TSM department inside WAJ, because WAJ have to take the responsibility of supervising and making sure that these treatment plants are running according to the TSM, according to these pillars we put, because eventually it's the Jordanian laws and bylaws. We are not inventing something new, but we want to make sure that they are on place and they are being followed. So now we have the TSM Directorate in Water Authority of Jordan. They are responsible for the whole inspection, preparing all these kind of date for inspection, issuing the certificates, training the inspector, nominating the inspector, and making sure that it's run smoothly and according to the vision of the water sector. But also on the other side, we are working with the water utilities to have a liaison offices, or at least focal point on this treatment plant, because some treatment plant will not pass the TSM inspection. And there's some comments that they have to consider. And these focal points or liaison offices, they have to follow up with this treatment plant. So the next inspection that they should go through it, not also have comments. And they should make sure that all TSM aspects are on place and on ground. So the future of TSM, as far as I know, and Udo, you could also participate in this, that TSM should be generalized in Jordan. All 33 treatment plants in Jordan have to go for inspection, and there's also a vision that we expand also to desalination or hydropower treatment plant. So this is what we are thinking in the future, and hopefully it will be managed together.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So Udo, after hearing about the need for the introduction of TSM to Jordan, in your large experience in the sector in Jordan, what are some of the main challenges that Jordan is still facing? And what are the priorities for the coming years when it comes to further developing in improving the wastewater sector?
Yeah, well, this is quite a difficult question, because in a way, we are spending a lot of efforts in developing systems, in planning and design of systems. But what I see as the biggest challenge is, how do we operate these kind of complex plants in a sustainable way? And here I can see the TSM is a very important tool to make sure that we have a kind of standard way of judging how the performance of treatment plants is. On the other hand, we have to make sure, because, one of the challenges is, how do you serve the population, the remaining population? There is a sewage master plan which states we have still to cover about 173 locations, population 5,000 plus, if you want to cover all people with proper sanitation services. This is not possible if we do it within the existing public system. We need to involve the private sector. Again, TSM, as Hind explained, is a very important tool, and we have to make sure that this is as well applied, whether it's private or public, as a kind of management and monitoring tool. So we see as well, let's say the largest plant in Jordan is at present already operated by a private sector company. And quite successfully, because, I remember when I arrived in Jordan, passing Zarqa is a town near to Amman, a big town with 1 million people. You could not pass it, you had to close your nose because it was such a bad smell, totally overloaded plant. And here we had the opportunity to inject additional funding, and the management of the private sector. Now we have the same biggest challenge is what do we do with the rest of our plants? And we started as the ministry to restructure this sector in a way that we established public companies, northern region, middle and south, and they should operate somehow a bit commercially, not commercially I would say, but it's in a more performance-oriented matter. These companies, have still some big tasks to do, but they are not able to, even at this stage, run the plants technically in an acceptable manner. Like talking about irrigation. Using reuse of treated wastewater means you have to make sure that you maintain the standards. There are Jordanian standards for use of treated wastewater in irrigation. You have to maintain those, because if you don't maintain it, the farmers will not use it. This is our biggest challenge, to ensure that whatever we invest is managed and operated in a sustainable way. This is, for me, the biggest challenge. The next challenge is, of course, we have to show to the international community that we are doing the job in the best possible way, even under the present conditions. I mean, you have to remember, Jordan is a refugee country. Millions of refugees came in. If you look back in history, Palestinians, when Israel was founded, they started to go to Jordan. So 60% of the Jordanian population is basically of Palestinian origin. We adopted 500,000 Iraqi refugees, now 1.2 million Syrian refugees. And I will tell you, most of the people will stay. So the challenge is there, how do we get this organized? It can only be possible because Jordan is not a rich country, with the international support. And luckily, we were really in a good position over the past 20 years to get this support slowly and gradually building up, especially in the wastewater sector, because people focused on water, and we managed to shift the priorities a little bit to sanitation. Okay, priorities are still, as I said, we have to involve the private sector, we have to ensure the operation in a proper way, we have to ensure the funding of the measures. There's still billions of dollars, euros, JD needed to continue. And if you have a population growth like in Jordan, the population was almost doubling over the past 20 years due to refugees and other factors. How do you cope with this? If you have a refugee camp with 80,000 people, this is 80,000, it's a town. How do we get those people somehow served? So these were, I think, the now UN Secretary General, Mr. Guterres, was once visiting Jordan. He said, it's a miracle how Jordan managed to absorb these numbers of refugees. Me as a German, I have to say, in Germany we spent 10 times the amount. I think we were not as successful as the Jordanians. Yeah, that's it. Yes, this is what I see as well. One of the challenges again, and which we have to address as a priority, is sludge. The stabilized sludge, what to do with it. There's no solution yet, apart from landfills, but they are seen as a temporary measure. Again, it needs further support, and it's not easy to tackle it. I think internationally we have problems in dealing with sludge nowadays. So this is one of the priorities to come up in the future. Yeah, well, and insofar what we have to do, try to sell the Jordanian example in such a way that it helps us upgrading and securing the finance for the future works to come. That's, in short, what I could say on this.
Thank you. I know there's many more things to say, but in the last 2 minutes of our talk show, I would like to still tackle one topic, the topic of workforce. So, hint, in very brief, because I still want to also ask a question to Rüdiger, could you tell us a bit more about the topic of human resource development in Jordan?
Definitely. Part of GIZ project in Jordan, we also looked into the human capacity development. So we are working on different. We are working with Water Authority of Jordan, so it is water and wastewater, and also we are supporting the wastewater sector separately. So the idea that we are providing all this technical support for the wastewater or water sector, but eventually you need people who could run these new technologies, who could make sure that this technology provided or this treatment plant or this even pumping station, water pumping station are running in the correct manner. So GIZ worked in human development capacity. We managed to sign the first human development capacity agreement between Water Authority of Jordan and the water utilities. We also introduced the online learning management system, and we also helped Water Authority of Jordan of supporting the water training center. And this water training center will be a hub for the Jordanian water sector to be trained and also for the neighboring countries to take its training in Jordan. And it's also equipped with the new technology, up-to-date, educates, virtual reality, simulation wall, all these kind of technology. And on the other side, looking into the wastewater sector, we also introduced computerized maintenance management system that make sure that these treatment plants are maintained in a regular basis, and we also cope with the standards and guidelines for the treated wastewater. This kind of capacity building is still running, and we are also looking for more support to the wastewater sector in this regard.
Thank you. So last question to you, Rüdiger. As you are very experienced in skills development worldwide in the wastewater sector, after hearing all of what Jordan is already doing, what are some things that you could give us with for the future?
Yeah, I'm looking a little bit from outside to Jordan and looking around, about 10,000 people working in the water sector in Jordan. In Germany, it's 100,000 people in the operators. So the question is how to keep them fit for the future. That is also what we are discussing in Germany, how to keep this workforce fit. And that's not easy. The challenges will be not less. We have climate change adaptation, we have digitalization, we have the technologies coming up. We have data, a lot of data, simulation using this data. So a lot of new challenges coming up. So how to keep 10,000 people fit. Training center, you mentioned it, that's very important. We have the digitalization. There are a lot of new things. We have formal education, we have non-formal education, this kind of YouTube podcasts and whatever. I just listened to a podcast from WEF, on the Environmental Federation in America. They had a discussion like this. What are the challenges of 2050 in America? And one of the lecturers, he said, the only way to get into the future is to have good utilities. To have good utilities in place who are motivated to learning utilities, good in communication, and keeping up. And not only the operators, also the regulators. Don't forget the regulators. We need fit and well-qualified regulators. So I think that is one of the topics. I'm a standard guy and a training guy. We have a European standardization, CEN. There's a lot of technical standards available. I know that Jordan is affiliate member of the European Standard Organization. I think there's still something could be more used in Jordan from that knowledge which is already there. The second one, I'm engaged in World Skills. World Skills, we're trying now with 11 countries to set up a standard for water technicians, water supply and wastewater technicians. So there's a skills competition in the world where we define the standards, and that could be done. Jordan is up to now not a member of World Skills International. World Skills International, there are 85 countries in the world are joined there already. Egypt is a member, Tunisia is a member of World Skills. Jordan is not a member. I don't know why. I think TVET, vocational training, is a very important thing for the future. We need people with dirty hands, that's for sure, to operate it. So I think that is something what I can say from my point of view. Standardization. Standards are the basic and textbooks for training. When it comes to real welding and pipe laying and whatever, the first question is what kind of standard we use. There are European standards available. Just use it. We use them in DWA. So Portugal, Poland, Turkey, they're using it. Why not Jordan? So I think there's something to do on that. That's my small way of saying that.
I have to intervene.
Oh, that's good. Great.
Because Jordan is using international standards. Jordan has its own standards, in particular for the use of treated wastewater. There are 3 Jordanian standards, and they're quite strong and quite tough.
That's what we need now in Germany, because there's a lot of discussion going on reuse on wastewater in Germany. I think that is something we can learn from Jordan, I think. That's for sure.
Good.
Okay, thank you. Now I think I have to intervene. I know there's a lot to say about wastewater management in Jordan. First, thank you to the three of you for joining the talk show, for sharing all your knowledge. And I also saw that there is very interested people who joined online. There are questions already to the talk show, so stay tuned for what's to come from Jordan, from the wastewater sector in future, in the coming years. And thank you for tuning in.